Out Entrepreneurs. Rhodes Perry here, and welcome to episode number 5 of The Out Entrepreneur, a weekly podcast where I get to interview today's most inspiring LGBTQ bosses crushing it in business. Today, I am so excited to be interviewing Aidan Key. Aidan, are you ready to inspire fellow Out bosses?
Without a doubt.
Excellent. Aidan Key is the founder of Gender Diversity, a nonprofit dedicated to providing support and educational services with respect to transgender and gender diverse children. He leads a support program for parents of trans youth that is the largest in the U.S. and offers trainings and policy development for school districts, organizations, and other youth-based agencies across the nation. Since 2001, Aidan Key has produced the annual International Gender Odyssey Conference for families raising trans children, professionals seeking to expand their knowledge, and for adults exploring and celebrating their gender. He regularly presents at college campuses and has been featured on national and international television, radio, online, and print articles. Aidan Key is an identical twin, a father, and lives in Seattle with his wife, Kristen. Aidan, thank you again for being on the show. I am so excited to have you. You are doing a lot of really amazing things, and I'm really interested in just learning a little bit more about your nonprofit, some of the consulting work that you're doing, and really what makes your business unique.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll tell you, the start of this is naivete. We don't know what we're stepping into until we do. I often share with folks that I don't think that I would have made that very first step if I'd known what was ahead of me. I would have been too intimidated and overwhelmed. And yet, where we get to and where we begin are two different things. So stepping into that was a definite personal need. I wanted to connect with people, and I needed help for my personal journey in relation to gender. And I thought, well, let's put together a conference. That was the first step in this work. But I did start with a for-profit mindset because I knew how to balance my checkbook. Money in, money out. This is how you do this. I don't know how to put together a board. I don't know how to put together a nonprofit, all of that. So the nonprofit aspect of this work came about later. And I'm really grateful for that experience because I bring in a number of elements from both particular models, business models, that I think works well together. So, I could say a lot more about that, but I feel like that's what's kept me in the game and kept me in this work, to bring both of those components in a hybrid sort of way.
The nonprofit and business model is particularly unique in the way that you frame that. Hopefully will inspire other people thinking about a purpose-driven business that can also help communities that they care about or communities they come from. And you're doing a lot of cool work. And so this question might be hard, but what is the one thing right now that has you most inspired about your business?
The one thing would be that if we're looking at my business, it has a product. And the product, I never know exactly what it's going to be because it requires everyone to show up and infuse their experience, their challenges, their heart, their lives into it. So that is easily the most inspiring thing about it, is that this what it feels really strange to call a product is actually these individual and collective lives coming together to manifest something really powerful and, frankly, world changing.
For many Out entrepreneurs, it seems like they arrived at starting their own business for one of two reasons. The first is that they either felt a calling to pursue a purpose-driven idea to help their communities. And then the second is that they really couldn't stomach the idea of trying to fit themselves into a box, into a workplace culture that didn't value bringing aspects of their whole selves to work. So I'm just curious, which one of these scenarios resonates the most with you and why?
I'd almost say there was a third option, in that I didn't intend to make this my work at all. So it wasn't about I'm stepping into a new career. It was something I was doing based out of personal need, creating community. I didn't even have community. I knew a handful of people and felt like, well, that's just not enough to navigate this complex journey in relationship to gender and what all the implications of that. I felt like I'm just doing this in an interim way until I step into my next career, whatever that may be. But I hadn't gotten to a place of even pondering what type of work world that I, as a transgender man, might be able to step into and be received well, be accepted and valued for my work ethic and my skills and all that I would bring. Felt like, oh, that's coming. But my initial step into it was, well, this is what I need for right now. And it wasn't until I had some pretty powerful feedback a few years into it that made me value my own work. I wasn't valuing it in the way that other people were. So I had various leaders, and both in the nonprofit world and in the business world, that gave me some excellent compliments, some excellent feedback, and showed me that they valued this work, that they thought it was profound, because I didn't see it in that way. I finally got to a place of saying, what I need to do is right in front of me. I'm doing it every day. I just need to commit full time.
That level of commitment is so required to be an entrepreneur and to keep going. So I think one of the powerful things that you're doing is you're role modeling ways of doing business in a different kind of way. So when thinking about the workplace culture that you're creating, either for yourself, perhaps for folks that you're subcontracting work out to, obviously the clients that you're working with, what's one thing that you do in your business to create a more inclusive environment for LGBTQ folks broadly and other folks who often feel excluded in the workplace or by employers?
Well, those who come into my world, I want them to bring their full selves into it. So every experience they've ever had, I want them to know that I view that as an asset, and that if they're showing up, again, as a full, whole person with a lot of different life experiences, that all of that is valued, and that all of that is something that I want to make room for within our organization, because that's what I bring to it.
And I want to shift a little bit and go more specific to identity. So you have mentioned that you identify as a transgender man, and I'm curious about, you had said that this work has evolved and that really you were starting this work to support yourself and to meet a personal need. I just want you to answer this question for our audience members specifically. So did being an out transgender man influence your journey to become your own boss?
Frankly, it's something that I feel like falls into a conversation, and that works well for me. What I have done in recent times, especially, well, I shouldn't say recent because it's been that way the whole time, is find the courage to say who I am and to say who I'm not, and to also say, and I don't have particular identity labels to fully describe in a shorthand way who I am. That's been a real challenge and a real gift, because what I've discovered is that there are many people out there who can handle that if I can communicate that well. So I have to think about, well, where am I? Am I doing a training at a school? Well, my personal identity isn't going to come into the equation that much. I've got 2 hours in there with a group of teachers and administrators, and I want to move them forward as much as I can to help them support their students. So my identity might not step into this much at all. What do they know about my identity beforehand? I don't know. They might know a lot. They might do a simple internet search and discover some things. But I don't bring that in. Where that might change is I might have a 3-hour training with a group of school counselors. So I've got more time. I can bring in a couple of personal examples along the way. And that seems to be of real value. It gives permission to people to really step in and say, gosh, I don't understand this, Aiden. Can you share a little bit more? Can you give me some direct examples? So that's been pretty amazing.
On the piece of the conscious decision of being out and recognizing that conversation may look different depending on the audiences that you speak with, I'm hoping that you can share a time where you were out, where it was a very difficult time. So just one concrete example. Can you take us to this moment where you were challenged with bringing your authentic self to the work that you do?
Well, it might come as a surprise, but the easiest part of bringing my full and out self to my work has been everywhere but my own community. So I would say the most challenging time I had was, gosh, it's been over 10 years now, where the particular moment in time in history of at least my local transgender community was as I was moving forward in my gender transition and doing this work. What I didn't recognize is that by pulling together a conference or a workshop or some type of event, that was putting me in a leadership position. I resisted that pretty significantly. And also the presence of transgender men at that particular time within my community was new. And that visibility of myself and shifting in the way I looked, moving from a female presentation to a male presentation, inspired a lot of conflict. And because I was moving into maleness and bringing along my whiteness, I got a lot of critique and even some harsh attacks because I was male, because I was white, and because I was being perceived as a leader. So the most challenging experiences I've had during that time were because I wasn't strong enough to step into that leadership aspect of it and really, in some ways, take responsibility for it and own it. I felt like, well, I'm just doing this and people are showing up. And who am I to be a leader? I'm just starting this journey just as much as anybody, and even less so than some. So the most significant challenges I've had were when I knew there were problems and I didn't address them in a strong leadership manner. And partly because I was being accused of abusing power. So they coupled together in this interesting way where what the critique from a small contingent within my community, but definitely very vocal, was that I was taking advantage of privilege and power and abusing that in some way, when the reality was I wasn't being a strong enough leader to address, oh gosh, it could have been a personal conflict within a conference committee, for example, where there's some personality clashes. So I was fearful of really stepping in and saying, look, figure it out, or we need to do some adjustments here. So I'd say that was the hardest and most challenging time, and I almost quit. So I reached out to about 8 or 9 different local and national leaders to say, can you help me understand what's going on? And the wisdom I got from them was so helpful because they helped me understand where I was at a particular moment in time in a movement, and that it really didn't have anything to do with me, but it had to do with significant change that was happening.
You're speaking to so many points that also entrepreneurs can identify with, where you recognized a need, you stepped into that, you were thrust into a leadership position as an expert serving your communities, and the feeling of the imposter syndrome that sometimes happens for many of us, where we're now sought out for the knowledge that we have, recognizing that we're speaking to the needs of many communities that happen to fall under this massive umbrella, whether you're talking about transgender communities or even more broadly LGBT communities, and how all aspects of our identities are wrapped up into who we are and the communities we serve. And I think you're also speaking to the value of leaning on other community leaders for support on options and pathways to move forward to be as inclusive as possible. So you've shared a lot with this challenge and what seems like also some successes within the challenge. If there's one thing that you could share for our listeners to really hone in on, what would that be?
No matter what the type of business, you could sell any particular widget. I think the most important thing that I've done is to look within myself. Any particular challenge in life, any particular weakness that I have, if I don't work on it, I can't show up and be the best business person, the best leader that I can be. So if I'm working away and I'm working until 1:30 in the morning at my computer while I'm got my little pint of ice cream next to me and I'm not getting enough sleep and I'm not taking care of my nutrition, I'm not getting up and moving after sitting at my desk for 2 hours or 3 hours or whatever, I'm not at my optimal. So I want to be my best self. So it's a continual personal development, not just physically, but psychologically. that situation I mentioned over 10 years ago now, I was fearful, and I needed to, rather than try to avoid and hide and skirt around these scary situations, what I just needed to do was center and step into them.
This is so powerful. You've talked about overcoming fear, the importance of recognizing your expertise, being a community leader, and then also being innovative in the products that you're providing. We're going to keep talking about that, but for right now, we're going to take a quick sponsorship break. For our listeners, please don't go anywhere, because when we return, we're going to have the opportunity to get to know Aidan just a little bit better.
HR and diversity professionals. Are you struggling with engaging LGBTQ talent? Do you stay awake at night worrying about limiting litigation risks? Have you considered seeking support around these concerns, but just aren't sure where to turn? Look no further. Rhodes Perry Consulting offers you solutions with the Engaging LGBTQ Talent A to Z certification. This proven 4-week mentorship program delivers skills, offers support, and connects you with other professionals committed to transforming themselves and their workplaces. Learn more about this cutting-edge program by visiting rhodesperry.com and use the promo code RPC for a 10% discount. Take action and visit rhodesperry.com.
Welcome back, Outbosses. We are now going into our bonus round, where we'll have a chance to get to know Aidan just a little bit better, gain some insights on how to bring our authentic selves to work, and then learn one way to stay in touch with Aidan after the interview's over. So Aidan, are you ready for the bonus round?
Absolutely.
Great. Awesome. Okay. So did your LGBTQ identity hold you back from taking the entrepreneurial leap, or did it speed up the process for you?
Completely 100 jet propulsion sped it up.
And in one sentence, what does it mean to bring your whole self to work?
It means showing up, recognizing every single day, internal reflection, external reflection. It means just being attentive to absolutely everything.
What's one personal habit that helps you master yourself and your business?
That's pretty easy. If I look at the whole picture, it's overwhelming. That's when the fear and apprehension starts creeping in. So when I feel that, I sit down and I get a task done.
And then on that, name one thing that you readily delegate in your business to stay focused on what you're good at.
You know, frankly, that's a hard question to answer, because I am working so hard at delegating just about everything. So certainly there are some specific tasks, writing thank you cards. Sure, someone else can do that. Doing accounting, I don't need to do that. Different things like that. But I feel like the most important thing is for me to get as many people in as possible that can do many different things, including the stuff that I love, that I don't want to delegate. But that's because I want to have as broad and as significant reach as I possibly can.
Can you share a book or a podcast that has contributed to your success as an outboss?
No.
You're writing the book right now?
Right. I've been so busy since day one that sadly, even reading for pleasure has decreased so significantly. I do think, though, it's the engagement with individuals. So certainly that can come from a book or a podcast, but I haven't particularly benefited so much from that because I'm not doing that. But looking to leaders and people who have been in the game a long time, especially.
Please share one piece of advice to inspire the next generation of outbosses to take the entrepreneurial leap.
Start heart first. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for your time, Aidan, and for inspiring fellow outbosses. Before we go, can you please share one way that we can stay in touch with you after this interview?
Absolutely. You can write to me at info@genderdiversity.org. That's a great way. Or you can call 1-855-4-gender.
Great. Thank you so much. Outbosses, thank you for tuning in to this week's episode. Please be sure to check out the show notes for highlights from today's conversation. And as always, consider leaving a review in iTunes. For now, please keep being your authentic selves 100% of the time.